All right, welcome to another episode of The Rugged Gospel. Today, I have a very special guest with me, a good friend of mine, Mr. Absalon Andalo. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you for having me. It's an honor being here, man.
And we'll just get right to it, man. We're gonna start off the podcast by just asking you to introduce yourself a little bit, just in case somebody that's listening maybe doesn't know you, or is not, you know, doesn't follow you or something, But just introduce yourself a little bit, man. Like just your upbringing, your story, whatever you want to include on there for us.
Yeah, man. Of course. Well, I'll start off with my age. I feel like it's straightforward. Well, my name's Absalon, and I'm 28 years old, and I was raised in Orange County basically all 28 years of my life. Uh, I've been in church literally my whole life. My parents were pastors, and they were part of the IPUH, and until they retired, and now I am currently going to the Apostolic Assembly. Been there for about 8 years now. But man, I got baptized at the age of 15. So I feel like my whole life has been church, which is, I would say it's a blessing. But at the same time, it's like, man, like being a PK, man, it's I feel like it's hard, dude. It's hard because like I feel like you have all eyes on you. You have to be a perfect, I mean, I would say son, or I feel like a lot of PKs would understand, like, there's a lot of pressure to to especially, you have to maintain a good like a good testimony, and if you're not, in line, like you have all those people, at church, I would say, be like gossipy and be like, oh, look at the PK. But yeah, man, I'm happy. I feel I'm glad that I had two parents that raised me uh, in church, and yeah, dude, it's a blessing, I would say.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, it's not everybody thinks of it as like that it's not a much of a blessing, like it could be like, oh, all these rules and all these things, and but if you see it in the long run, like it's a very good thing for us that we were able to be raised in the church and not having to go through all these different things that the world has to go through, and all the different ups and downs of life. We still have them, but we know that we have somebody backing us up.
Yeah.
But man, I am asking this question to everybody that's been on the podcast, and I'm going to ask it to you. So tell us the best advice someone's ever given you.
I would say the best advice someone has given me, I would have to say my father. My father has always told me, never be afraid, to try new things, to venture onto different ministries. Even though if you fail, because we definitely, we're gonna fail. I mean, but when we fail, we learn to make things better. We learn to perfect, ministries or areas in our life, or new hobbies. So never be afraid. Never be afraid if God's calling you to do something different in your ministry. Don't be afraid to do it. You might fail, you might find obstacles, but if you trust in Jesus, and if that's the way that God is or directing you in your season, then God will open the doors, and God will help you understand what things to do.
I agree, man. I mean, without trying it, you're never gonna see if we're made for it or not, really. And that goes for anything. It goes for ministry, it goes for work, it goes for life in general.
Yeah.
If well, you have your girlfriend, so if you never went for it and never asked her out, you would never known if she was gonna say yes or no, right?
Yeah, that's true, man. Honestly, I think if I
So I
never,
mean, yeah,
if I never went for it, I feel like a lot of us would be in like, what if, and you never want to be in that position of like, when you're older, you're like, oh, what if I did that ministry? What if, you know, if I would have asked that girl or asked that. I feel like a lot of us live in what ifs. Now that we're a little older, we're like, man, I wish I could have done that. So, never be afraid. Never be afraid to try things. Never be afraid to try different areas. If it's an instrument or a camera, or you want to be a preacher. don't be afraid. I feel like nowadays, uh, there's a lot of tools out there. I mean, YouTube University, man, it's the easiest thing.
It's true. So whoever's listening, just go for it and do it.
Yeah,
That's good advice, man. But we're gonna go into the topic, man, that we're gonna be talking about today, and I've recently kind of been seeing this, right? I'm sure everybody else has, and if they haven't, we'll go ahead and mention it towards the end where to, connect with that. But you started a new ministry called Hymn of Heaven, right? And I have a couple questions for you on this, but I guess we'll start by the name, right?
yeah.
Hymn of Heaven. What's the meaning behind it, bro?
The meaning behind it, I would say it's a verse I found in Psalm chapter 40, verse 3, that says, He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. And when I first, was looking for a name for Hymn of Heaven, I felt like, it had to be something special, something meaningful that people would recall of, like, hey, like Hymn of Heaven. I know what that is. So when I wanted definitely him, it really got my attention. It really was like, man, like, if we can get everyone in a room and sing the same hymn or the same song to Jesus, but if we were in heaven, how would that sound? And that's pretty much how the name came to be, like Hymn of Heaven. And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But the meaning behind it for me was, I felt like it was an eye catcher.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, kind of how you put it out to be, and then where you got the inspiration from, like biblically. Uh, it is something that we kind of think about sometimes, like how is it gonna sound when we get to heaven, right? We hear about the angels singing and all these praises and things, right? And we're like, how is that gonna sound? So that's a cool thing that you thought of naming it that way, because everybody's singing the same thing, always. It's always that sound is always just, it hits every time, I feel like. But now, man, as far as the main point of this ministry, like the main point of Hymn of Heaven, what do you want to accomplish with this ministry? Like, what was it that made you start it?
The point of Hymn of Heaven is, to create a place of worship where we can bring unity among different organizations that are oneness. Because I feel like we have this stigma of, like, the AA is really, clicky, where it's like it's only us. And the same thing I would say with the UPCI or FTC or other, oneness organizations that we don't know of. And I feel like instead of being against one another, or saying I'm better or whatever,
Hmm.
I wanted to create a place,
Comparing.
yeah, a place where we can all just come and just create unity, where we can all just be worshiping God in one, and just pretty much how heaven would be. And it's not only for, I didn't want to make it just exclusive for just us, but, open to everyone in all walks of life. And I feel like, that's where God has been directing me at this moment in this season, where I'm hungry, man. I'm hungry to bring unity and to bring this movement where there's no judgment, and I feel like worship is it's so easy. It's you don't need that much doctrine. You don't need, especially if you're new to Christ, it doesn't require much at all. It's just a simple act of raising your hands and, calling His name. So, I mean, that's basically the vision of how, Hymn of Heaven started, and the type of ministry I wanted to create. Because I feel like worship
Yeah.
is an essential thing, honestly. Aside of, reading your Bible and everything, I feel like you can always connect with God in worship. And I feel like it
Yeah.
restores you. It makes you feel, and understand that God is there. You can feel His presence, honestly, even if you're just listening to a song on your phone. And if you really, just get into it and understand and just lift your hands, I feel like literally God can touch you anywhere.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. Music, just worship is, it's a huge part of life. In the life of a Christian, at least, like, it's not just you going to church and, doing the things, but worship just takes you in. It takes you into a different level almost, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're doing this, man. I mean, just from what I've seen, and I did get the tickets for that coming up one, which we're going to be talking about, but
Yeah.
I'm excited, man, and what I've seen, it looks great, and I'm glad you're doing this, bro. But now to go a little bit into the process, man, like a little bit of the backstage thing and the process of getting it going. How did the process look like to get this going and rolling? And how was your first event?
Ooh, man. Honestly, it was a roller coaster, bro. Because I mean, the vision itself started 2 years ago, and the first year was like, I had the desire. I mean, God put this burden, but I just didn't really know how to like execute it and like how to put it together. And so I kind of stopped it. But in 2021, man, God put that burden, bro. He's like, you have to do it. You have to, like, it was in me. And I'm like, well, how am I even going to do this? And who am I going to connect with? Or, like, who can I even talk to about it? Because, like, I wanted to be also sensitive. Because, like, I feel like if you share your vision with many different people, I feel like sometimes that vision can be taken. Or so I had to make sure that I was, being, sharing the vision with the right people. So I started talking to Isaac Hernandez and also Samuel Sangari. I told him, like, look, I have this idea to bring different singers and creating a band where we can create a place for worship. And I'm not musically inclined either, so I mean I wouldn't be able to, like, help you guys on that area, but you guys can take the music side, and Samuel can help me out with the artists. And it took us about, I would say, a whole 3 months of planning for 2021. So I would say October, November, and December, where we had our first one in January in 2022. But it took 3 months of planning, hard work. Brooke helped us out with vocals, from practices, from everything, man. Like, and we had our first one in January. We had about, I would say, for 100 and about 175 people. And I mean, I feel like working towards accomplish, like, for the first event, man, like, and then seeing it to life, it made me realize that this is what God really where He wants me to be at. Because I felt, seeing young people being filled, or seeing them worship, and especially for them having a place where they can come and just be themselves. For me, it felt like, man, like, this is, for me, I wish somebody would have done this a while back. Create unity among our different organizations. But I'm happy that, although I'm a little older now, I'm happy that God put that desire for me for our future generations. But yeah, man.
That's awesome, man. Um, I mean, it always feels good accomplishing something, right? And I'm sure, it feels good being able to see the fruition of you doing that and all those 3 months, working hard and doing this and doing that, and at the end seeing it and seeing it come to life. So I'm sure that was awesome to see. Let's go back into worship a little bit. So let's touch on worship a bit. Why do you think worship is so important?
I think worship is important because it's an easy way of connecting with Jesus. It's just a simple act of just, raising your hands. And in the moment that, you allow Jesus to come into your heart, you start, understanding and and just, surrounding yourself with a bunch of people as well that are worshiping and just lifting up his voice. It's just the perfect environment. We when we had the first one, I myself, experienced of what God can do when we all come together, when we all lift our voices, when we all set our differences aside, and we all have that one mind of like, we're here to just worship God. We're here to, just, not talk about politics, not talk about, we have the better musicians, we have the better singers. We're all just here to just, surrender, and whatever is bothering us, whatever we have, in our hearts, we give to God. We completely surrender to him. And I feel like when even if, the song is off or whatever, God is still going to move. And that's the powerful thing about worship, bro. Like, even when the music completely stops and you're generally just worshiping, you start hearing the voices of the whole room. And that itself for me,
I mean, just worship in general, like there's just so much to it. Um, just what you were saying, like even when there's no music, even when there's, like we mess up here and there on whatever it is, even when, there's something that disturbs it or whatever, like you still can feel that presence and you still can feel just that worship environment, with people and it just becomes almost like that tangible thing. But I think, worship is just so important in just our lives in general. But now the structure that you use for Hymn of Heaven, right?
Mhm.
There's not really a sitting chart. There's not really any of that. It's pretty much just standing from what I've seen.
Mhm.
More like an open, altogether free worship kind of style.
Mhm.
Well, why did you want to use this structure instead of the regular, church structure, I guess?
I would have to say the reason why I kind of went with the standing, I would circle, was because I felt like we're more engaged, honestly. Because I feel like if we're sitting down, like, traditional stage chairs and everything, I feel like you tend to either sit down or be, on your phone or be distracted. So when I first, I feel like as a creative, you always want to be innovative, trying to find different ways of incorporating, worshiping with Jesus. We don't always have to do the traditional chairs and Sunday type of service. I feel like if, God gave us a creative mind, we're all creatives in different ways, and I feel like, we should always try to approach different styles. You know, I feel like, in our church we're pushed, we have to do it this way. And if we don't do it that way, or we do it differently, I feel like we get that back end of like, oh no, that's not how church should be. But in reality, if we see, Jesus in the gospels, he was surrounded by people. He was out. There's no chairs, there's no nothing, he was out there. You know, people surrounded him and they heard his message. And that's the same style that I wanted to create. I wanted to create a place where people just come, surround, and they see, what is going around them. And especially in those moments where, when we're all praising and they, one of them might not be in it, but they start noticing and they're like, man, like, I want to be like, in that same spirit as them. So that's kind of the reason why I created it, because it gives you freedom to jump. It's just
It's a more open, like free, like environment, I feel like.
yeah. And it makes you, especially when everybody's kind of like jumping up and down, it's a super energetic uh, vibe that's really, that gets you going too as well. Where like, oh man, like,
Hmm.
how you just start kind of jumping and start kind of like being part of the whole thing. So, but yeah,
Yeah, no, it makes it easier for like it eases it in for people that are not used to maybe worshiping or not used to that. Like it gives you a freedom to do as you're feeling to do, not like with the lights shining on you and kind of in the spotlight. That many people, especially at the beginning, feel like like a little bit embarrassed or whatnot to worship.
yeah.
So I
And
feel like it's cool that it's open and free.
yeah, and the other
To
reason why I
yeah.
did it too was because it gave those people that have never really or don't really know who Jesus is, or maybe they're going for the first time. They're like, oh man, like it's a traditional church, chairs and everything. But when they come, they're like, oh dang, like this is completely different. Like, what is this? So I feel like doing different things, I feel like it really makes an impact on the people that are their first times. Their first time might be a worship night or their first time at ever being at a church, I would say. But yeah, man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now going a little bit into like the community sense of it, like is building a community also something that you want to do with this ministry? Not just, something where you go and worship, but also where you get to meet more people and create and have community as well.
Yeah, definitely. I do believe Hymn of Heaven is more than just worship nights. I feel like it's a place where you know it's a community, it's a house of prayer, and it's a house of worship. And I do definitely want to create that community where it's not we just come one time, but we create friendships that are a lifetime. And also the artist side as well. Like it's not only uh, them performing, but they get to meet different people from different organizations that they never met before, or it gives them, they're networking. So that's the purpose of it as well, and and giving them a platform where they're able to be part of that. Maybe they've never had the opportunity to be part of a conference or whatever, but they have this platform. And also something that I do want to add on, Hymn of Heaven is as well gives the opportunity for young speakers that have never had that opportunity where oh man, I'm never going to be used, or I'm never going to be part of a national conference or whatever from different organizations or a convention where Hymn of Heaven is a place for everyone. We're always looking for young speakers, we're always looking for young artists that maybe have never had the opportunity to be part of something.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you're not only creating, the place of worship, but you're also creating a place where people uh, can grow their gifts at the same time and
Mm-hmm.
can find their gifts really. So I think that's awesome, man. And I'm glad that you're doing it in that way as well, giving, that not a stage, but giving that, that freedom for them to also do that, like maybe, like you said, they wouldn't get the chance to do it anywhere else, but they have a chance to do it here and to grow here and to grow their ministry. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what what would you say is your dream for Hymn of Heaven? If you can give us a little bit on that.
Honestly, my dream for Hymn of Heaven would be maybe you know honestly, I feel like God has really been pushing, man, like really been pushing for maybe becoming a church, bro. Like it plays to community. I mean, I know that's kind of gray area right now, especially because they're like, oh man, like it's we should take it easy. But I feel like God is creating a place for everyone, bro. From music to artists, and to a community where we really want to care for all the people that come. We want them to make sure that their first time experience is something life changing, where they want to give their life to God. So my goal for him and Heaven is to eventually become as well to have a band, to have outreach programs, to to reach the people that have never heard the word of God. And but man, we're growing. We have, I mean, even though we're we've only been here for a couple months, we have a board. I mean, we have our one of my buddies. He's the director, Brian Silva. We have our branding director, which is Nate Salas, and then we have our pastoral outreach, which is Caleb Cortez. He's the one that does all the connections and stuff like that. And then we have our music director, which is Isaac, and then a couple core singers that are part of the as well as for Him of Heaven, that represent Him of Heaven. So I mean, for me, it's it's a dream. It's a long dream that started 2 years ago, a vision that started 2 years ago, that God gave me, and I'm seeing it now come to life. And I feel like God has a lot more and to give us, and a lot of doors have been opening up, bro. Like, this year has been a really uh, game changer. How we started this, because honestly, like, we did the first one, and I kind of started seeing different people doing that, and that's what got me happy, man. Like, I feel like we started something. I feel like young young youth and young adults want to find a place where they can go worship. And I feel like our dream is to eventually create that place where they can all just come and just worship freely without having to worry of someone judging them. Because I feel like sometimes we create that culture of judging other people, and that's the thing that I don't want to create. That I want to create a place where we're safe. But yeah, man, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe there'll be a tour coming up next year. Who knows?
Hey, I mean, never say no to something, like just what you said at the beginning. Always do new things and not be afraid of them. So, I mean, I think the future for this ministry, it's endless, man. Like, we are the ones that put, that wall. Because God doesn't, God wants it to grow. I mean, at the end of the day, it's for His honor and His glory. So, it's all for Him at the end of the day, and for His people. So I know that God's gonna grow it, and I know that, it's gonna become a bigger ministry than maybe you even think it will. But that's awesome, man. It's an awesome future for Him of Heaven, and for yourself, and whatever you want it to become. I know God's gonna back you up, and I'm excited to see what's to come, man, and all the future that that this is gonna bring for yourself and for other people, and the people that are gonna come out of this, with a new ministry and growing their ministry. So that's awesome. But lastly, man, before we end or anything, I want you to share a couple of things with us. One, if you have any announcements, your next event. Also share maybe about Instagram and website, etc., etc. Where can people find you and reach you for Him of Heaven?
Yeah, definitely. I feel for our big announcement right now coming up, I feel like people probably have seen it. We have our third worship night coming up, which is in October 22nd, I believe. But that's one of our biggest things. We're going to be in San Diego. A lot of people have requested us to be out there, so it's going to be in San Diego. So if you got no plans, it's lands on a Saturday. Bring your friends, invite people that have never been to church, because I feel like this is the perfect opportunity, especially if you're trying to evangelize them and stuff like that. This is the perfect place, a place where they would feel at home, a place where they won't feel judged or whatever how they come dressed. And next, follow us on Instagram, him of heaven _ and our website would be in our bio, www.himofheaven.org. But
Sounds good. Man, thank you for coming on, bro. Thank you for making the time. I know you've gotten a pretty busy schedule, and thank you for making the time to be here with us and for letting us a little more into the ministry that you started. And man, all the best wishes to you and to this ministry you started. And we'll be definitely praying for you. And I myself will be at your next one, so I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited to be part of it, man.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited to have you. And, thank you again, for having me, I know that we've been like pushing it back, but, I'm glad we finally were able to, sit down and talk about him in heaven. And I'm praying for you as well, your ministry, your podcast, and, your fiance, your future wedding, bro, is coming up.
It is, man. Slowly but surely it's coming.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you, bro.
But thanks, man. And I think you're next, bro.
Yeah, man, I'm excited too. Hopefully this year I pop the question, bro. Hopefully.
Uh, I hope she hears this podcast. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on again, and and for being open to have a conversation. And we'll definitely see you then. And for everybody listening, thank you for listening to this week's episode. And be sure to check Hymn of Heaven out on their website, Instagram, and go ahead and go to their event as well. Thank you guys for everything, and God bless.